lesson 8, right?
Yeah. All right. What's up, aviators? Welcome to Up and Away's Lesson 8. I'm just going to fix you, Raj's little face cam here so we can see you since you joined a little bit late. There we go. We can see him. Very beautiful, handsome guy. Anyways, today is checkpoint number 1, where we do a traffic pattern. A traffic pattern is a rectangular course around the airport where you practice landings and stuff like that. So that's basically what it is. It's called a checkpoint today because we are using everything that we've learned from lesson 1 until lesson 7. We're going to be implementing everything into this one flight. So we're going to go to the next slide here, and Calvin will start us off.
All right, so our guiding question for today is how do you practice your landings and how does ATC manage the air traffic at the same time? All right, this is really important because not only do you want to know how to fly your plane correctly, the people who are managing the airport also want to make sure that people don't crash into each other because when that happens, bad things happen. And we don't want bad things to happen.
Yep.
Uh,
And I
are you
will
on the
switch to the
next
next
one?
slide here. There we go. And I also started the
Yeah,
stream on
so
Discord if you want to watch.
yeah. So as Steven said, today is a checkpoint lesson. So we're basically gonna go over, do a big review, and then we're gonna do like it's kind of like a midterm. We shall call it almost. We're basically gonna go through all of the whole entire procedure, add everything together, and then do a full, um, kind of like a combination of everything, and then that's what Steven called the traffic pattern. And if you go to the next slide.
Yes, there you go.
So basically, how do we do all these parts together, right? All the takeoff, the landing, all that other stuff. And at the same time, making sure that, because there's going to be other people in the air, right? I mean, most of you probably aren't old enough to drive yet, but you see your parents, right? It's probably a lot easier to drive if there's nobody else in the road, right? But there are going to be others on the road. So you have to make sure that you know that there's other like planes there. I mean, there's other cars out there. So you got to keep in mind the traffic. So likewise in aviation, you got to keep in mind that there's air traffic, and that's also really important. So the answer to that is we have our traffic patterns, right? So as we'll see later on, it's a very organized way of having planes fly around the airport and into the airport, and it's also a very short circuit that you can do to practice every single most of the important parts in flying.
Yep. So yeah, today we're doing traffic patterns where we can practice takeoffs and landings in a little circuit, like how Calvin mentioned. When you start learning how to drive, you probably start to learn how to drive in a parking lot. That's like a little closed circuit. So this is basically what a traffic pattern is. I'm going to go to the next slide where you, Raj, is going to explain the actual patterns. You can explain the left and right patterns and what each leg of the pattern is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yuvraj, if you don't remember. Uh, and I just want to preface this part by saying that generally, airspace, there's a lot of open sky, but it can get quite dense around airports because there's all the traffic converges at airports. And that's why airports have these things that you're looking at called traffic patterns around the runway. So, the way a traffic pattern works is it's a simple rectangle with one of the sides on top of the runway, and it has the different segments of the rectangle have different names that you can talk to air traffic controllers using, describe your location, and this is the pattern you follow when you want to come in and land. So, this first one that you see over here is a left traffic pattern. And the way it works is you take off on the runway and you can see the orange arrows. Those describe the direction of takeoff. So the orange arrows, you take off, and then as you take off and you climb out, you fly straight. That's your upwind leg. And it's called upwind because you're going up the wind. The wind is facing you. You always take off and land into the wind. So that's your upwind leg. And then you turn left. Now, the left turn, which you first commit, that's why it's called a left traffic pattern. So if you were to turn right at the very beginning, it would be called a right traffic pattern, which you'll see in the next slide. But yeah, for now, this is the left traffic pattern. And the first turn left, the first 90-degree left turn, it's called the crosswind leg of the pattern. And it's called a crosswind because that's when you're 90 degrees from upwind, that means the wind is coming across from across of you. So that's why it's called a crosswind leg. It's rather simple. And then you fly a little bit, and then you get the downwind leg. Now, downwind leg runs parallel to the runway, but not just the runway. It kind of extends farther out than the runway on both sides, as you can see. Uh, the length of the upwind and the final, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, combined more than the runway. So you turn left, you go downwind, and then if you do another left turn, you get the base leg. Now, base leg is just pretty much the crosswind leg, but on the landing side of it. So you get the base leg. So you fly through the base and then you turn left and align yourself with the runway again, and that is called final. The final leg, or most people call it the final approach, which means that you're approaching, you're descending in altitude to get to the runway. So, yeah, that's the final approach. Now you can see the plane where right about here uh, on the diagram where it says downwind. It's sort of almost at the runway threshold where the white lines are, and that's actually where you start extending your flaps, but we'll go over that later. So, yeah, and that's also where you start descending. But pretty much, I wanted to mention the exits and the entries onto the traffic pattern. So as you can see over here, the straight out departure, it's all it is you just go ahead and fly on out. You just go straight and you fly away. It's very simple. And then you can see the 45-degree departure, which it's very self-explanatory. You take in a left traffic pattern, you take a 45-degree left turn, and you fly away to wherever you want to go. And those are your two basic departures. So the other thing is the entry. It's this over here described as a 45-degree entry. And again, very self-explanatory. It's a 45-degree to the angle to the downwind leg, and you just fly on in, and then follow the downwind leg, and then base, and then final. The 45-degree entry, it's also commonly known as a dog leg among airline pilots and such. But yeah, that's basically your left traffic pattern. There's not much to it. It looks complicated, but once you give it a shot, you try flying it, it's very easy. So, do you want to go to the next
Yep.
leg or next slide, Steven?
Yes, I can. And so basically, a traffic pattern is a huge rectangle in the air with one
That's
side
right.
as the runway. Um, the next slide here it is. It's a right traffic
Right.
pattern.
So this is your right traffic pattern. So as you can see, the airplane takes off upwind and it has the straight departure, the 45-degree departure. But the crosswind leg, this time it's a right turn. It's not a left turn anymore. And then it's a right turn to the crosswind, and then you fly downwind. Then this is your base flying in the other direction, and then your final. And then you come in and you butter the landing, which is why there's a butter over there. But yeah, again, this is what a dog leg or a 45-degree entry to the traffic pattern would look like if it was on a right pattern. It's just a mirror image of the left pattern. It's very easy. Again, these charts look complicated and all kinds of patterns and all kinds of names, but once you kind of give it a shot, once you try it out, once you start flying, it all makes sense. It's a lot easier than it looks.
Yeah, and the reason why it's left and right pattern is because when you have a left pattern, all turns are to the left. When you have a right pattern, all turns are to the right. So here on the screen, you see a right pattern. When you take off, you turn right once, and then you turn right again, and then you turn right again, and then you turn right again. So all of it's are right turns. So that's why it's called a right pattern. Now, airports have designated patterns. Normally, if the airport doesn't say what it is a left pattern. But if they do say, then it's a right pattern. Normally, if you have two runways at an airport, then the left one would normally be the left and the right would be the right pattern because they don't want airplanes, intersecting each other and flying into each other. So that's why they have it basically split off, make a little box around the airport. Go to the next slide. So you got the altitude. So One last thing we have to teach you guys before we actually show you what a traffic pattern looks like is, uh-oh, didn't mean to go to the other side, is what these altitudes are. I'm trying to find a place to put my camera. There we go. So there are different altitudes in aviation. By now, you only know one of them, which is the altitude you see on your altimeter, the little round dial in your aircraft. Well, the altimeter shows you the true altitude. So on this chart, you can't see my cursor for some reason, but you see in the middle it says true and in parentheses MSL. That is what your altimeter shows you in the airplane. Now, let me define these words for you. True altitude is the same as MSL. MSL stands for mean sea level. The reason why it's called true or mean sea level is because it is the distance between your plane and the sea level. That's why it's mean sea level. On the bottom, you see my beautiful annotation of the ocean, those squiggly lines, and it says sea level pointed to it. That is the ocean. Just imagine that as sea level. That is the ocean. And you see the true altitude MSL is the arrow between your plane and the sea level. That's what your altimeter represents. Now, to the right of true MSL is pressure. Do not worry about pressure altitude. We are not going to teach you what it is. It's a lot harder to understand. It has a lot more to do with the atmosphere. We're not going to teach you about it. But what we are going to teach today is the new one is absolute altitude or AGL. AGL stands for above ground level. That's why it's called absolute altitude. As you can see, I annotated the ground with an arrow pointing to the ground. You can see it's almost level with the airplane on the left side because the plane's on the ground. So now, absolute altitude, if you fly, let's say you're 1,000 feet, your absolute altitude would be 1,000. It's absolute altitude is the distance between your plane and the actual ground itself. So absolute altitude always changes when you're flying because you might be flying across mountains or valleys like the Grand Canyon. So your absolute altitude is going to go up and down a lot because the distance between your plane and the ground is going to change. So now how do we know what altitude to fly at when we do your traffic pattern altitudes? Now you might remember we've been telling you to fly at 1,000 feet. Well, 1,000 feet is actually 1,000 feet absolute altitude or 1,000 feet AGL, which is 1,000 feet above the ground level. Now, how do we fly at 1,000 feet AGL if our altimeter shows MSL or true altitude? Well, that's pretty simple because, this really sucks if you can't see my cursor. But in order to know what to fly at, you can see my annotation right underneath the plane. You see 4 different boxes with my sentences there. So it says altimeter shows MSL, but we want to fly at 1,000 feet AGL. So how do we find the MSL that we want to fly at? Well, the answer is you take the AGL, which is 1,000 feet. We want to fly at 1,000 feet AGL. So you take 1,000 plus the MSL of the airport. Now, in order to find the MSL of the airport, you're gonna have to look that up. There are books and websites that show you what the MSL of an airport is. In fact, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna exit out here. I'm gonna go to. Does SkyVector show you?
Yes, yeah. So go to skyvector.com.
There you go. Let's go to Reed Hill
And
view since
then,
we're flying out of that.
yeah, sure. KRHV. Go to flight plan. No,
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 just
no, 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 no,
flight
no,
plan.
no, 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 not there. Yeah, in
Flight
there.
plan.
KRHV.
Departure.
Anything, departure, arrival, anything. And then, yeah,
There you
look at the
go.
airport diagram.
Airport diagram. That's
No,
not an
no, no, no.
airport.
Go back.
That's
No, no,
not an
no.
airport
Just,
diagram.
oh God.
Well,
Yeah, I know
that shows you
it's
too.
confusing.
That shows you too. There you go.
No,
Here.
just go back. It
Here.
shows you in
I got
proper
it.
detail.
I got it. Here.
Yeah, or yeah.
Field
read them.
elevation. Do I have to zoom in for you guys? I do. Oh, our cameras
There.
are blocking it. Hold
A
on.
little
There we go.
box.
So do you see on the right side it says field elevation 135? That field elevation is the height of the airport above sea level. So that is your MSL of the airport, mean sea level. It's the height of the airport above the sea, the ocean. So it's 135. What you have to do is going back to my little diagram, you have to add 1,000 feet AGL, which is what we want to fly our traffic pattern at, 1,000 feet, to the MSL of the airport, which Reed Hillview is 135. So our traffic pattern at Reed Hillview would be at 135 feet. So when you're flying your traffic patterns, your
Oh, you mean
altimeter,
1,135
yeah.
feet.
What did I say?
135 feet.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, 1,135. So our altimeter should be saying 1,135. Let's do another practice here. Let's go to
Denver, try Denver.
Denver. What is the code
K
for Denver?
Kden.
Kden. Okay,
Kden.
Kden.
hmm So,
Uh,
or here, yeah, just go slowly now, Kden. And then just hover over the blue. Just hover over the blue and then hit airport diagram.
got it.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, it's
Now
sideways. I
you
can
can,
rotate it.
yeah, you can rotate it, make it bigger, zoom in, whatever.
There, it says field elevation on the bottom and the little box. Oh, you can see my cursor now. Field elevation
Mm-hmm.
5434. So Denver Airport is
Anyone in the
actually.
comments?
I'm sorry.
Let's ask them in the comments.
Yeah.
Try,
So if
give us a
Denver's
number.
field elevation is 5434, what's our traffic pattern altitude going to be?
Let's see if you know.
And Anish is asking, can we see our true altitude simply by looking at our altimeter? The answer is no, you cannot.
Yeah.
You cannot
So,
see what you're actually above the ground. While there is a way to see how high you are above the ground, but not with the altimeter. You
yeah.
can
So
use
basically,
you
there's in
yeah.
bigger airliners when you're flying below 2,500 feet, there's a radio altimeter that runs on radio waves and measuring how long they take to hit the ground and bounce back to the plane instead of pressure. And so bigger planes have radio altimeters often, but not
Yep.
not Cessnas, not the type of Cessnas that you fly usually. You have to
Mm.
count everything in mean sea level altitude.
Yep, and Anish says 6434 is the answer, and that is correct. You add
That is
1,000
correct.
to field elevation
Yep.
because you want to fly your traffic patterns 1,000 feet above the ground level. All right, so you guys got that down, and that is basically
Mhm.
how you know what altitude to fly at. So today at Reed Hillview, it will say 1,135. That is basically what we were supposed to teach you for the altitudes. The next thing I want to show you is what a real traffic pattern looks like. So a couple weeks ago, maybe like a week ago, I actually went out and flew a traffic pattern, and I had a GoPro attached to my forehead um, to show you guys what a POV video looks like of a pilot flying a traffic pattern. Now, why
Oh, I think you have to open it on YouTube.
I is it because I'm signed out? Oh, because I have to switch
I'm not
accounts real
sure.
quick. Okay.
But yes, this is actually
This
Steven
is
flying in
a
his real plane.
real video of a real plane flying. It's not a sim.
Yep.
Maybe
This is not a
I
simulation.
mean, we could be tricking you. This could be VR, you know.
Nah. You'll see. You'll see how it looks. Too good to be VR.
And also, when I'm playing the video, I won't be stopping it. So we're just gonna play the entire video without
Yep.
stopping it.
Just run right through it. Go for it.
I am gonna mute my mic, and I'm gonna ask Calvin and Yuvraj to mute their mics too, so that
Sure.
because since OBS is taking the computer output, if you talk, we would hear you in the stream. So if I could, I don't know. Can I press? I have to present this. I think.
Hit the watch on YouTube thing underneath or bottom right. There's a try clicking on it. Yeah, there shows
Watch
up an
on
option
YouTube.
there. Yeah, there you go.
And Anish is asking, can we find this video on YouTube? Yes, you will find it. It will be published onto our Project AVIATE YouTube channel after this lesson. It's scheduled for 5:30 to be published. And I'm going to mute my mics. Here we go. What's up, aviators? My name is Steven. I am a private pilot. Today we're actually in a Cessna 172. This configuration is slightly different. It is the G1000, Garmin G1000 displays. You guys are used to 6-pack, which are these instruments down here. They basically do the same. I'm going to point out stuff from the airspeed and altimeter. They're also right here on the strips, airspeed, altimeter, and that's basically it. This is your heading indicator right here, and then you got your magnetic compass. And so today we're doing a traffic pattern. That is where we are doing a rectangle box around the airport to practice landings, and that is what I'm doing today. I'm going to be practicing landings. And so before we start, the traffic pattern has 4 to 5 legs. There's 5 legs, even though there's 4 sides to it. There's a runway. We're taking off runway 31, as you can see, 31 right at Alpha, which is going to be that way. That is going to be the upwind. Once we take off, that is the upwind. We're going to make a right turn or a left turn, depending on if we are parting on 31 right or 31 left. If it's on the right, we'll do a right turn. Left, 31 left, left turn. The left turn is going to be called a crosswind turn. So we're going to be doing a crosswind. Then we're going to do another turn, either to the left or the right, down opposite direction of the runway. That's going to be your downwind turn. Then you're going to be over there. You're going to turn towards the runway, like turn inwards. That's going to be your base leg. It's going to be a left or a right turn towards the base leg. Then you're going to turn towards the runway and line up for the runway, and you're going to be landing. And that's going to be called your final leg. So you got your upwind, crosswind, downwind, base, and final. Those are your 5 different legs that we're going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead, and I finished the run-up already. We started cold and dark. We taxied over here. We did our run-up, and so we're actually going to taxi. We're going to request to enter the runway, because if you remember from our last video, our last lesson, that is the whole short bars right there. That is the whole short bars right there. The whole shorts are basically 4 yellow lines. 2 of them are solid, 2 of them are dashed. If on the solid side, you cannot cross to the other side without permission, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to ask for permission, and we're going to take off. Of course, before you take off, flaps are up, your trim is set in the middle for takeoff, your mixture goes full rich, your landing light comes on, your strobe comes on, your nav remains off unless you're flying at night. Remember, your beacon should be on since your engine is running. One last thing before we take off is your heading bug. In the 6-pack, you turn a little orange knob, and it'll be an orange. In the G1000, is a blue knob. You want to set to your runway heading. We're taking off runway 31, so it's 310. As you can see, 310. Verified right there, 310. It is pointing 310. When we line up, we also want to see 310 on our magnetic compass. The heading bug is really useful, and I'll show you why after we take off. We're going to switch over to tower frequency. Brakes are off. We're going to taxi towards the runway. This is my airport diagram. We're going to turn that off. We don't need that anymore. Remember, pedals to steer, throttle to go forward. And these are the whole short lines are right here. And we request for clearance. Ready to retire. Skyhawk 55231, holding short, steering right, and Alpha, ready for close pattern.
Skyhawk 55231, ready to tower, cross runway 3 and right, hold short runway 3 and left.
Cross 3 and right, hold short 3 and left. Skyhawk 55231. So he gave us a clearance to cross 3 and right. No delay, 55231. And he gave us a clearance to cross. And you notice up front there's 2 more hold short bars. We're on the dashed line, dashed side we can cross. And this is the solid side, we're not allowed to cross. And we hold right here till we get our clearance. He wanted us to go 3-1 left. This is 3-1 left, the other one's 3-1 right, we just crossed. And because we just crossed 3-1 left, we're going to be holding here. And we're doing a left pattern since it's 3-1 left. Since this is 3-1 left, we're going to be doing left pattern.
Skyhawk 231, make left close traffic, runway 3 and left, clear for takeoff.
Left close traffic, runway 3 and left, clear for takeoff, 55231. It will be left turns this time. Landing light on, strobes on, nav set. Nav is off, mixture in, takeoff, trim set, flaps are up. Get on the runway.
Cessna 0 for November, right when able contact.
And you line up with the runway. Once you're ready, go full throttle.
November 4 Juliet Sierra, runway 3
Rest
and
is
left,
set.
land.
Engines are indicating green. Airspeed's alive.
You're at 55, rotate upwards. Now you want to continue on this upwind leg until you get to 500 feet above the ground. If you notice, we actually started at a little over 100 feet. So 100 plus 500 for us is going to be 600. So we won't be doing any turns until we get to 600 feet. In fact, we can actually bug that. 600. Once we get to 600, we're doing a left crosswind this time. Alright, check our left wing. It's cleared. Are you past 600? Make a start left turn. Now this is where the heading bug comes into use. When you know when to roll out when your heading bug's on this side. That's when you're going to be at your crosswind leg. There we are, and roll out.
And video tower, Cub 72, South, 3 miles. Cub 72 Hotel, runway 3 on right.
Now we're going to turn left downwind.
Clear to land, Cub 72, South.
We're now turning left downwind. Also, we should level about 1,000 feet above the ground. Remember, we started at 100 feet, so 100 plus 1,000 is 1,100. We're at 1,300. We'll descend slightly right now. This is called the downwind leg, guys. We're now on the downwind leg. As you can see, the heading bug is actually pointing down since that's the opposite direction. That's where we take. That's the direction we took off.
Skyhawk 231, runway 3 on left, clear for the option.
3 on left, clear for the option. Skyhawk 231. Now you want to fly downwind for a while because remember you have to line up for the runway when you're inbound. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fly out a tiny bit. When you feel comfortable, I want you to reduce your power to 1,500 RPM. We're at 1,600 right now. When you're at 1,500, drop flaps 10. And I want you to descend at 75 to 85 knots.
3W Tower, good morning. Cessna 2129 Charlie 1300 over IBM, inbound full stop.
Whenever you feel comfortable, you can start turning base. I'm going to turn base now. My left wing is cleared.
2 and 2 out.
And keep your descent down at,
Last thing, radio tower, say again.
2129 Charlie over
at
IBM.
85 knots. That's slowing down a little bit.
Cessna 2 and 29 Charlie.
You know to roll out when your heading bug is on the other side at your 9 o'clock position. Now we roll out. Our airport off the left. Once you're on base leg, if you're under 85 knots, flaps 20 degrees. Keep descent coming. And when you see your PAPI lights, you want to turn final. Remember, our PAPI lights are the 4 reds. We're currently 4 reds. We're slightly too low. Actually, we are 3 red, 1 white.
2 hotel, traffic, left base for the parallel Cessna. Okay, looking for drive, Cessna hotel, thanks.
4 red. Okay, there we go. 2 whites, 2 reds. We're exactly on glide path. Now we're going to align ourselves with the runway. And once we're on final, go flaps full. Remember, there's 30 degrees of flaps, 10, 20, and 30. Remember, your airspeed controls your altitude. Your pitch controls your airspeed. So I'm 65. You want it to be coming in at 65 knots. I'm a little slow, so I'm going to pitch down. I'm a little too low. I'm going to put power in. We're going to hold 65. Really high, pull your throttle out. Remember, pitch controls airspeed, your throttle controls altitude. Now once you get to over the runway, you want to go throttle idle, and you want to slowly pitch up, and let the airspeed bleed off when you're above the ground.
29 Charlie, runway 3 on left, clear to land.
3 on left, clear to land, 2129 Charlie.
Here we go. And that's how you land. And we're going to taxi off here at Charlie. Slow down, use brakes, slow down.
Skyhawk 231, hold short of Charlie. Correction, hold short of runway 3 right at Charlie.
Hold short 3 right, Charlie. 522. There you go, guys. So now we're in between the hold short lines. We cannot cross as he did not give us permission to cross.
Bravo cross runway 3 right, hold short runway 3 on left.
3 on right, hold short 3 on left.
And that's basically a traffic pattern. And once we cross the runway, I'll tell you what to do next.
Skyhawk 231, cross runway 3 right at Charlie, contact ground.
Cross right, Charlie, contact ground. 522. Alright, we're crossing runway 31 right. And ground scout back to 31, request taxi back to 31.
Stack 55231, retail to ground, runway 31 right, taxi Yankee.
Yankee to 31 right, 55231. Alright, so we're now on the taxiway. We're taxiing back to 31 right at the beginning of the runway in order to do another traffic pattern. Your before landing correction, your after landing checklist calls for lean out your mixture a tiny bit, your flap comes up, and your landing light comes off, and you're using your taxi lights now. Strobe remains on unless you're at night. If you're at night and you get off the runway, you turn your strobes off because you don't want to blind other pilots. And that is basically it. That's how you do a traffic pattern. You're now going to go back to the runway and do another traffic pattern. And if you're watching this video on the up and away, we're going to have one of our officers show you how to do it in the sim on a 6-pack. And our 6-pack basically looks like this: altimeter, and airspeed. And remember, flaps 20, anything of 20, so 20 and 30 has to be in the white arc, 85 or below. That is basically it. Have a great day, guys.
All right. I'm going to go back to these slides. So that is how you do a traffic. All right, so that is how you do a traffic pattern in real life. We do have one question by Anish, and Anish asks, "What was that random sudden beeping? Sound like an autopilot?" You are correct. It is the same sound as the autopilot, but in this case, it wasn't actually the autopilot. Even though it's the same sound, it was a different purpose. It is actually the in the G1000, so the digital displays, you're able to bug an altitude just like you're able to bug a heading. So I bugged 600 feet, or yeah, I bugged 600 feet, but I upped it up to 1,000 feet. So when I descend, so when you bug an altitude on the Cessna's G1000 planes, if you climb or descend more than 200 feet from the altitude you bugged, it's gonna alert you to let you know that you've either descended too much and you passed 200 feet from your altitude that you wanted to stay at, or you've climbed too much and you climbed over 200 feet and you totally missed your altitude that you're supposed to level off at. So it's a warning indicator. I will show you what the bug means actually right now. So we're gonna go ahead and switch to the sim right now. If it shows, there we go. We are in the sim. What I mean by bug, I'll also turn on the sounds since we don't have sounds. All right, so what I mean by bug is, you know how you have your little heading indicator? You see, you turn a little thing, the little thing that moves. That's your heading bug. Today, we're gonna set our heading bugs at 3-1 because our runway is our runway number is 3-1. So we're gonna set our heading indicator at 310, which is right there. You have a different. If you take off of a different runway and you're taking off, let's say San Francisco's runway is 28. Then you set yourself at 28. Since 28's right here, so you set your heading by 28, so you take off. In the Cessna 6-pack, there is no bug for the altitude, unfortunately. You could use your GPS right here. You could put a little bug here, but that's not going to do anything. That's just for your GPS. It won't give you the sound when you get close to it. But in the newer Cessnas, they would give you a sound. But that's just, you can use that as a bug, as a replacement. All right. All right, so now we're actually going to do this traffic pattern in the sim right now. So I am actually already lined up on the runway. If I can turn on the camera, you can see I am lined up on the runway already, ready to take off. I restarted my engines, stuff like that. Before you take off, make sure your mixture is all the way in. Trim is on the white bar, which is neutral. Your flaps are up, and your landing lights are on. So your beacon, landing lights, taxi lights, and strobe lights should be on, and your nav lights if you're taking off at night. So I am going to take off right here, and so just go full throttle and take off your brakes. Remember, you have to use right rudder to keep yourself on the center line. If you don't use right rudder, your plane will veer off to the left. And once you get to 55 knots, you pull back on the yoke. So we're at 50. There's 55, and you gently pull back on the yoke, and now you're climbing. Now you want to take off at about, so please ignore the ATC. I'm not, focused on ATC right now. You want to climb at around 74 knots, which is, we're slightly too slow for that, but I'll show you that once I get to 74. There you go, we are at 74. I'm just gonna pause my sim right there. Now you're on the upwind leg. You want to climb at 74. My speed's decreasing, but don't worry about that. You want to climb at 74, and remember, you want to climb until 500 feet AGL before you turn crosswind. Now, I am going to turn on the slides right here. You want to climb until 500 feet AGL before you turn crosswind. Now, remember, that's 500 feet AGL. What is that in MSL? Well, you add the field elevation, which is 135 of Reed Hill View, to 500. So 500 plus 135 is 635. As a rule of thumb, just use 600 because you don't want to be too accurate. Like, you're not going to count the little tick marks and actually see if you're at 635. But so just go to 600 and then turn left crosswind. That's what we're going to do right now. Alright, we're at 500 feet now, as you see the altimeter. And here is 600. Once we get to 600, we turn left crosswind. So, here we go. During your left crosswind, you continue your climb to 1,000 feet AGL. And remember, 1,000 feet AGL is an AGL, it's not MSL. 1,000 feet plus our field elevation of 135 is 1,135. In this case, we'll just climb to 1,100. We're not going to be, super accurate. We're just going to go 1,100. You always round up in aviation. Now, you want to be continuing to climb at 74. I'm at like 79 right now. I am close to 1,000 feet, so we have 100 feet to go. And you know when to roll out of your crosswind turn when your heading bug is on your 3 o'clock. It's slightly to our, we didn't roll out the way, but you know our crosswind turn is finished when our heading bug is on our 3 o'clock position. So now you fly your crosswind leg for approximately 15 to 30 seconds. You don't want to make it too long, as you don't want the traffic pattern to be a square. You want it to be a rectangle. Okay, looks like I kind of climbed too hard. Now we're gonna turn left downwind. So here comes another 90 degree turn to the left. Once you get to 1,000 feet, or correction, 1,100 feet, bring your power back to 2,000 RPM and level off at 1,000 and hold 1,000 feet. Now you'll know when to stop your turn when your heading bug is on your 6 o'clock position, which is on the bottom of your heading indicator. There we go. Our heading bug is on the bottom of our indicator, and our RPM is at 2,000, and we are level at 1,100 feet. Don't worry about airspeed for now. Now, the next part is, when do you start your base turn, which is the next 90 degree turn to the left? Well, you start your turn when you feel comfortable, because your downwind leg is gonna proportionally give you the amount of time that you have on final, and your final leg is the leg where you set up for the landing, and that's the leg where you align your plane, make sure that everything's in the right position, and you're aligned up with the runway. So if you need more time, extend your downwind leg, which is right now we're gonna head downwind. So extend your downwind leg if you need more time. Now, if you don't need time, then once you cross the airport on the other side, once you depart the airport, let's see here, I'm gonna freeze this in real quick. Our airport is back there. Start of the airport's right there. That's where we took off. Now, if you're getting better at landings, when you're abeam this point, so that we started off right there, if you take that position and you draw a line all the way out to this side over here, that's where you're abeam the runway, and in the runway starting point. If you feel comfortable, you can start your base turn there, or you prepare for your base turn. Now, if you're not too comfortable, then extend your downwind, which is what we're doing right now. So now we're going to get ready to land. In order to get ready to land, first thing you have to do is put flaps 10 degrees. So lower your flaps 10 degrees. There we go. And after you've put flaps 10 degrees, I want you to pull your power back to 1500 RPM. And once you get to 1500 RPM, you will see that your airspeed is going to drop. Now, I don't want you to let your airspeed to drop. And how do you do that? Well, in order to not let your airspeed drop, you push your nose down. I want you to descend at about 85 knots. And then now we're going to do another left 90-degree turn, which is our base turn. We're going to keep 1500 RPM at 85 knots. We're getting a little slow, so we're going to add power. And we're going to pitch down. Remember, pitch controls your airspeed, and your power controls your altitude. Now, we know when to roll out because our heading bug is on our 9 o'clock position. That's telling us that we are on our base leg. Once you are on your base leg, you want to slow your plane to 85, which is the white arc. Once you get to the white arc, put your flaps down to 20. 20 degrees of flaps. Because remember, 20 degrees and 30 degrees can only be done when your flaps are at 85, when your airspeed is 85 or below. Right now, we are at 85, so we're going to put flaps 10. Now we are flying on our base leg, and when do we turn final? Now, if you notice in the video, I said you turn final when you see the PAPI lights. You can't really see the PAPI lights in the flight sim right now because I've turned down the settings, because my FPS is more important. But anyways, when you see the PAPI lights in your X-plane, PAPI lights, remember, it's the 4 red, either the 2 whites, 4 reds, or they change colors between red and white. Once you see them, start turning final. So it's another final is your next path, which is 90 degrees to the left. Let's just say we see our PAPI lights now, so we're going to turn final. So we're going to turn 90 degrees to the left. Now, you might not always be aligned with the runway once you turn in. So take this time to adjust your position with the runway. Once you get on final, put all your flaps down, which is 30 degrees. Flaps 30 degrees. When you're coming on final, try to come in at 60 knots. I am way too fast. So I'm going to pull the power back, and I'm going to pull the nose up. Now you want to hold 60 and get to the ground. And remember, your power controls altitude, your pitch controls airspeed. So since I'm a little fast, I'm going to pull the nose up. But if I pull the nose up, my plane's going to go up. So in order to not let the plane go up, I'll pull the power out. It is a common mistake to think that the power controls your airspeed and the pitch controls your altitude, but it's the complete opposite. We're slightly fast here, so I'm going to take the power out. Remember, you're holding 60 knots. And when you get above the runway, pull your power out and let your plane float along the runway and let the airspeed bleed off. Remember, landings in a general aviation aircraft are controlled stalls. You're basically letting the airplane stall onto the ground and fall onto the ground. The stall is basically when you lose enough airspeed and you don't generate enough lift, so it's going to fall. Landings in general aviation airplane is basically controlled stalls. There you go, and now we've landed the aircraft. It is 5:15. We don't have enough time to do another pattern, but I hope that you guys understood what to do. And I need to fix this thing real quick. You're muted if you were talking, by the way. Not sure if you're trying to talk, but anyways. There we go. So now we have the traffic pattern done. So if you guys would like to review how to do the traffic pattern, these slides that we have on our that we've been showing you guys right here. So everything on the slide that I'm showing you right now was
No,
spoken
I was
out loud.
muted.
Yeah. So everything on the slide that you see was actually spoken out loud by me. I just didn't follow word by word. Um, if you guys want to go over it, it will be on the public slides as soon as I'd say Sunday when Nikhil sends our update email. Normally, you guys get an update email. So these slides will be on the public slides. You will find them. Feel free to read through them. The traffic pattern, the real life traffic pattern video that I filmed, will be published onto our YouTube channel in 15 minutes. If you want to watch that and learn from that, you can do that too. Or you can rewatch this lesson, even though it went a little pretty quick. We do have one question from Anish. Also trim must be reset or something before takeoff? That is correct. And remember, your trim allows your plane to fly up or down without your physical control. So you see how we're pulling back or forward and back on the yokes? Now when we're flying, we don't want to be constantly pulling back or pushing down on the yoke, so we use the trim. The trim basically acts like a balancer for us to fine tune our flying. Basically, when we're climbing, we don't want to be constantly pulling on the yoke. We'll put it in a neutral position, but then we'll set the trim to pitch nose up for us. And if you don't reset the trim during takeoff, what if it's nose down? You know, when you're speeding down the runway, you're nose down, then you're going to be yanking back on the yoke all the way, and you're not going to be lifting off because your trim's going to be set nose forward. Vice versa, if your trim is set full nose up, once you gain enough airspeed, your plane will just pitch right up into the air 20 degrees up, and that's a bad thing because if you pitch up too fast and you're at a slow airspeed, well, what happens? You stall the plane, and you might unfortunately stall the plane and will come right back down onto the runway. Not softly though, it will be pretty hard. Oops, I'm still on the sim. Explain, Calvin, does the trim reset for you and explain every time you start? Is it in a neutral position?
It should, yeah. I think it usually defaults to like 7 if you go to Kaului.
Okay.
It should reset every single time.
Yeah, so it
At
should
least
be in a normal position, so you should be fine. In real life, you have to check because the last pilot that flies might not leave it in the neutral position, so you have to double check. If that's it, if you guys have any questions, feel free to submit the form or use the chat. Our next
Let me
lesson.
double check the form.
Go ahead.
Okay.
And our next lesson will be next Friday. On our spreadsheet, our next lesson says basic traffic pattern, which is what we covered today, so we might adjust our schedule a bit and move on to ATC Part 1. ATC stands for Air Traffic Control, so we would start teaching you how to communicate on the ground and while flying. You're going to communicate with traffic controllers who are standing in the towers or sitting behind a screen watching you on the radar. So that's what our next lesson is. So we hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson, and we hope to see you next Friday. Calvin and you, Raj, do you have anything to say?
No, not really. The question form looks good. There's no new questions that we need to cover, so I guess we can wrap up.
All right. And
If you have any questions, shoot them in the chat right now.
Looks like we don't. So we're gonna end our stream here.
Cool.
We hope you all have a
and
great Friday. Go ahead.
I just want to quickly mention, if you have any questions, you have 3 options. You can either ask us in the chat, you can put them in the Google form, link is in our description, or you can email them to us and one of us will personally reply to you. So if you have any questions at all, email us at flyprojectaviate@gmail.com.
Yeah, the good thing about Project AVIATE is that it's not a robot responding to your emails. It's physical people
Yeah.
typing the responses and emailing them.
We get notifications as soon as
Yeah.
you send in an email, and then we get on top of it.
All right, that's it, guys. Have a great Friday, and depending on where you live, it's sunny outside. Go exercise, have some fun. We'll see you in the next lesson.
Bye, everyone.
Yeet.